Hello and welcome back to another episode of this week's watches, and thank you all very much for your patience. There was no drop last week, as a lot of you were well aware, because I took a short break with my family, which was absolutely lovely and definitely required just to sort of rejuvenate and re-energize. But as a lot of you probably know, if you have children, a holiday with a baby almost requires a holiday afterwards from that holiday. To the point where we actually cut it short because she just would not settle in the new environment, which was a shame, but to be honest, we still got to relax. We had a lovely time, so I cannot complain. And thank you all very, very much for your patience and understanding. And this week has been incredible. This week back, it's been so busy, so many appointments, so many sales, so many purchases, so many consignments. So thank you all very, very much for the support. I truly appreciate it. Now, as always, if you're here for specific watches that are shown in this drop, in the description, there's a timestamp for each watch shown, so you can skip straight to that. There's also a link to the website, and that will show you all the details, all the photos, the price, and whether it's available. If it's sold, the price will not be there. We don't disclose the prices once they're sold because the market's constantly changing, and some people use it as a reference point, and often you don't know when the watch was sold. So it could have been sold 3 years ago on the website, or even 5 years ago. There's some very old watches on the website. That price is almost irrelevant to today's market, so that's why we don't put the prices, which I'm sure a lot of you can appreciate. And again, it's quite a common thing across the industry. Now, before we start talking about all the watches real quickly, this coming week, so obviously this video goes live Saturday, the following week, I will be in Monday to Thursday, and Thursday will likely be a shorter day because it's actually my daughter's first birthday coming up this weekend, and we've got family over, so I'm picking some family up that are coming into London on Thursday to take them back, and then Friday I'm going to be driving, picking up more family, so I won't be in the office. I will still be working, but periodically in between, you know, driving and all that kind of stuff, so I appreciate your patience. It does mean please get your orders in Thursday by about 1 or 2 p.m. at the latest to ensure delivery for that week. Otherwise, if you order after that or after 2 p.m. Thursday, it won't be shipped until the following week. So before we dive into the 10 incredible watches on the table, what is on wrist? I am wearing my personal 1975 Zenith Defy. This is a watch that has a lot of meaning, a lot of history to me, and a lot of you guys and girls know it well. I don't actually wear it that often, and what I often find is I don't wear it for maybe even a couple of months, and then I put it on wrist and I won't take it off for about a week. Today is day 4, I believe, with the watch, and I'm probably going to wear it for the weekend coming up as well. So yeah, it's a really great watch, really beautiful, and I do have something similar in the watch repairers at the moment. I'll be hopefully getting it back soon. It's the exact same reference, but with the round dial and the round crystal rather than the cushion dial and the cushion crystal you see on mine. It's the same cushion case, the same bracelet, the same everything. So yeah, that's in the works at the moment. Excited to get that one because a lot of people ask me for a price on mine. This one is not for sale, but that other one will be, so keep an eye out for that. Now let's crack on with what you're here to see, and that is the watches on the table. We're going to start with an awesome Rolex GMT-Master that just came back from polish, and it looks incredible. This is the discontinued black dial, black bezel. Why on earth they discontinued this, I have no clue, but let's take a closer look. So beginning this week's episode with the incredible Rolex GMT-Master black dial, black bezel, a discontinued reference, and it's quite amazing really that they discontinued this. Obviously right now you've got the Pepsi, you've got the Batman, you've got the Sprite, all with these weird nicknames, but this one, the all black, is not in the lineup. Do I think they're going to bring it back? I do. I think eventually they will bring it back in some way. And I think it'd be silly of them not to bring it back, really. I'm interested to hear what you guys and girls think down in the comments section. But this is the reference 116710LN, and this one's from February 2015 with its box and paperwork, and is fresh from a polish. Its first polish it's had. It was unpolished before this, but I decided to get it polished because I thought it needed it, to be honest, just to spruce it up a little bit. And obviously, for the most part, not always, but modern Rolex GMT or modern Rolex buyers typically want their watches to look like new so they can wear and enjoy and put their scratches in, whereas obviously like vintage Rolex or vintage Amiga, keeping it unpolished is always best. And as long as you use a good polisher, it comes out looking great, and this is the perfect example. The condition of this one now is wonderful. Obviously, do keep in mind some scratches will still be visible and some marks may still be visible, because at the end of the day, it's just inevitable really, unless you're going to take off a huge amount of metal to sort of get to brand new metal all the way around, and that's something I don't like doing. And whenever I have my watches polished, I always say to the polishers, please go as light as possible and do as little as possible to reserve as much metal and edges and corners as possible. So that's just my take. Of course, if you wanted it heavily polished to the point where everything looks brand new, that can be done, but it's not something I personally recommend. So that's just my take on it. Inside this is the automatic Rolex caliber 3186, a very reliable GMT movement. As you can see, you've got the green GMT hand, the running seconds, date over there, 3 o'clock under the Cyclops, and the bezel is all black. Some of the photos, because of the way the lights contrast, it makes it look like black and grey. I can confirm 100% this is all black. It is not black and grey, just some lights, it does give off that illusion. But that's enough for the rambling. Let's show on wrist and talk dimensions. And here we go on my 7-inch wrist. Now, personally, for modern Rolex GMTs, other than the white gold Pepsi that I absolutely love, this is probably my favorite modern GMT because it's the most understated. And with the new maxi case, maxi dial, you know, the bigger links and everything, I do feel like they're a bit flashy, not in a negative way, but they definitely stand out a bit more on the wrist than older references. So therefore the all black works best for me personally. And it's the most understated across the board, in my opinion. This is 40mm by 48mm lug to lug, 11.5mm thick, and 20mm on the lugs. This does come complete bracelet, as I say, box and papers ready to go and be enjoyed. So go check it out on the website today. From there to a surprising one I absolutely love, and I think it looks incredible on wrist. That's this Breitling Super Chronomat 44 4-year calendar. Yes, that's a mouthful, but what a good looking piece. And again, the value. This is another one of those watches where I think we're asking like around half of retail, which just blows my mind considering this is a 2023 model as well. So let's take a closer look. So what do we have here? This is a awesome Breitling Chronomat 44, but it's not just any Breitling Chronomat. As you can see, this is a complicated 4-year calendar in incredible condition. It is worn, it has been used, but to be honest, it's pretty damn good. And looking at that dial, you might think, wow, that is complicated. And to be honest, it's one of those watches where it does take a minute to realize what everything is. But let's go through it. So you do have a chronograph here as well. So this isn't just a calendar, it is also a chronograph with your screw down pushers. So once you unscrew, you're able to start the chronograph. As you can see, that's now running. So your central chronograph seconds goes round as normal. At 12 o'clock, you have your running seconds, as you can see that second hand going round. And you also have your date, which is pointed at the very outside of the ring. Over here at 3 o'clock, you have a moon phase. At 4 o'clock, you have a pointer date, so your day of the week. And you also have the 12-hour totalizer for the chronograph. As we come over to 9 o'clock, you have your 30-minute totalizer. So as obviously this goes past 12, the running seconds, that will add on a 1 minute onto that timer. And then you have your month on that one right there, as you can see. Yeah, not a simple one, that's for sure, but an incredible watch nonetheless. A lot of the function is through the crown, but you do have some pushers on the case as well to make adjustments where needed. And as I say, screw down pushers, so you have to unscrew to use the chronograph. Let's stop it, screw it back down, and let's unscrew and reset. There we go. A really beautiful watch, and surprisingly it wears amazingly considering the size, and we'll get onto that in the wrist bit where we show on wrist. It wears really well, and I think that is thanks to this very nice and comfortable rubber strap with its Breitling deployant buckle. Simple plain case back, as you can see. You'll have to apologize for my fingerprints. It's a very hot day here in London at the moment, and I'm doing my best to keep wiping everything, but when there's polished surfaces, it's inevitable, it's going to get fingerprints. So the reference to this one is I9320. Inside is the automatic Breitling caliber 19, and this one's from July 2023 with its box and paperwork. A beautiful watch, absolutely incredible. And you've got stainless steel and 18 karat gold on that bezel, as you can see on the dial as well. That's enough for the rambling. Let's show on wrist and talk dimensions. And here we go, comfortably on my 7-inch wrist. Now, don't get me wrong, it is a big watch. There's no question about it. It is a big chunk of steel. However, I think that wears actually quite well on my 7-inch wrist. If you have a bigger wrist than me, it's going to wear obviously even better. If you have a smaller wrist, you know, say 6.5 inches, I think you may struggle a little bit, but it depends on what you like wearing. If you like bigger watches, then you're going to be completely fine. But yeah, it's really, really cool. So what you're looking at is 44mm by 53mm lug to lug. 14.5mm thick and 22mm on the lugs, with the rubber strap flaring out straight after the lugs to create that sort of flow with the case, which looks fantastic. So go check this one out on the website today. From there, we're going to go over to this awesome watch. This is an IWC Aquatimer 2000 automatic tritium. And there's an interesting story with this one because it's dated 2009 per the card, but it's a 90s watch. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, how these situations happen, because obviously we've had, well not obviously, but we've had quite a few watches over the years that have situations like this, and it can sometimes leave potential buyers a little bit confused. So, you know, we'll give an explanation to how these sort of situations happen. So let's get into this one. Next up, a favorite for me from this drop. This is the IWC Aquatimer 2000 meter automatic. And that right there is a tritium dial and tritium handset. And as I said in the intro to this, you might be a little confused because the date on the card sold at the IWC boutiques shows March 2009. And a lot of you out there are going to be going, tritium was long gone before 2009, and you'd be correct. They stopped using tritium late 90s, in some cases very early 2000s. So how has this happened? How has this reference, which by the way is IW356, 353602, by the way. So how has this happened? Now, back in the day when I worked at retail, there were scenarios where we found watches at the back of the safe that had been forgotten about. Now that might sound quite crazy to a lot of people out there, but you've got to think some of these stores will have potentially 500 to 600 watches in stock at any moment across multiple brands, multiple SKUs, multiple models, and they'll have multiples of each, if that makes sense. So back in the Amiga boutique, at any given time, you'd usually have 4 to 8 Speedmaster professional Hesselites, for example, depending on the size of the branch, how busy it was, and obviously your stock allocation. So therefore, it did happen where things got forgotten about. You know, in the back of the safe, a watch was left, or maybe was put on hold for a client because a client wanted to take it and the client never came back and the people involved forgot about it. These things can happen. Now, I can only assume that is what happened in this scenario because, again, the paperwork is all signed 2009. We had it recently with a solid gold Tag Heuer Monaco that was sold many years after its production by the Tag Heuer boutique. It was one that was just sat on the company, unsold, sat at the warehouse, and someone happened to go in at the right time. So these things can happen. You know, it doesn't happen often, but that's how these things happen. So inside this is the automatic IWC caliber 37524, and the watch comes paired on this wonderful integrated bracelet with the IWC folding clasp, a nicely decorated screw down case back, a screw down crown, and quite a unique or interesting push slide bezel. So you push it and turn and it locks in place, and you push and turn basically. So that's how you use the bezel. So you push it down and it basically engages it. You can do it with both of your thumbs, however you want to do it. But yeah, a nice system, and it just adds a bit more reassurance when using the bezel. So let's show this one. Oh, by the way, March 2009 box and papers, and let's show this one on wrist and tall dimensions. And here we go on my 7-inch wrist. As you can see, it's on the thicker side, but it still wears incredibly well, and it hugs the wrist thanks to that integrated bracelet design. So what you're looking at is 42mm by 49mm lug to lug, 14mm thick and 16mm at the lugs, flaring out and tapering down. So fantastic design, but go check this one out on the website today. From there to a Marmite watch, if there ever was one. This watch definitely caused some ripples in the internet and the watch collecting world. This is the Breitling Supernova Midnight Blue automatic on the integrated bracelet. Let's take a closer look, and I'm interested to hear what you guys and girls think of this down in the comments. So next up, the watch that I said in the intro is definitely a Marmite watch, and what I mean by that is either you love it or you hate it. It's one of those designs. Let me know down in the comments section what you think of the watch. This is the Breitling Supernova, which is one of Breitlig's latest additions with the integrated bracelet design and that unique case shape and feature, which, as you can see, still has, you'll have to apologize the background noise, you'll have to forgive the background noise. So where I find this watch to be quite unique is you still have the triptych design of Breitling, something you come to expect with their mid case, case back and top case, and they've done this like a traditional round watch, even to the actual dial itself, but then there's this sort of almost cushion-esque case built on top of it. That's what it looks like, with these violently sloping lugs, as you can see. It's probably the wrong terminology, but you understand what I mean. They come down very aggressively on the bracelet, which definitely helps with wearability, but it also creates quite a unique look. Quite a pointed crown guard as well, and the crown quite far from the dial. All this is quite unique and definitely stands out as a design feature that you either like or you dislike. This is the midnight blue dial. As you can see, power reserve down there at 6 o'clock, date over at 3 o'clock, and as we flip it over, you're presented with the Bremont automatic movement. It's got a very long caliber name, so if you want that full caliber, head over to the website and you can see that, but very nicely finished, very nicely decorated. And Bremont are putting a lot of effort into their finishing and their movements recently, so it's good to see. It does come with a deploying clasp, which has the Bremont logo and the wings right there that sort of go in, very nicely done. And the links are all screw links, which is again very nicely done. This sort of almost IWC engineer type bracelet, and that's what makes this watch a bit more interesting in my opinion. It's not a integrated bracelet design quite like anything else. It's almost like an amalgamation of many different designs brought together, which I find quite unusual. So this is March 2023 with this box and paperwork, and let's show on wrist and taut dimensions. And here we go on my 7-inch wrist. There's not quite a watch that wears like this. Like, I can't point to anything and say this is a watch that wears similar. This is quite different because you've got the bracelet coming straight off the top of the case, which again creates this quite unusual wrist presence, which I find quite interesting on wrist. It's actually very comfortable, and it doesn't feel big and clunky like I thought it would, especially when you see the dimensions. It wears really nicely. So maybe this is one, if you are interested but you're unsure, come and view it. This is one to see in person, try on wrist and get a feel for it. So 40mm by 53mm lug to lug, 11mm thick, and 25mm at the lugs tapering down to the end of the bracelet. So go check this one out on the website today. Next up, one of the better releases, or one of the best releases from TAG Heuer in quite a while. This is the awesome TAG Heuer Carrera red dial limited edition 02 39mm, again super long names. What you need to know is it's got a beautiful red dial, it's 39mm, it wears incredibly and it looks great. So let's take a closer look at this. TAG Heuer time with the Carrera, and this is no standard Carrera, this is a beautiful cherry red limited edition. And I won't bore you with the reference because it's quite a long reference, but what you see there is this gorgeous deep red dial with this slightly faux patina in the hands and the indices, which again just really contrast beautifully against the red of the dial. There isn't quite a red like this, you know, I think it's very unique in that regard. And this is the era, or the latest era of the TAG Heuer Carrera with the new TAG Heuer caliber or Heuer 02 movements. Which are far thinner than their predecessors and help to make a watch incredibly wearable. It's also the 39mm case. To be honest, I think this is some of the best releasing from TAG Heuer we've seen in a very, very long time. Now, we did have this watch previously, so if you missed that opportunity to buy it then, now is your opportunity to snap it up whilst you can. It comes paired on its original strap with its original Heuer deployant buckle, and the dial, as you can see, proudly states Heuer and not TAG Heuer. It's these little things that collectors really love, and you know, it just makes that difference. Heuer on the crown as well, as you can see. So this one right here is from July 2022. It does come with its box and paperwork, and it's one of the biggest boxes I have ever seen. So make sure you go check out that photo on the website and you'll see just how crazy that box is. But let's show this one on wrist and taut dimensions. And here we go, very comfortably on my 7-inch wrist. You can see they have got the proportions perfect in my opinion on this. Even the thickness, a couple of people still complain about the thickness. Yes, the original manually wound Carreras are thinner, but to be honest, for an automatic, this is still relatively thin, all considered, so I'm perfectly fine with it on wrist. What you're looking at right here is 39mm by 47mm lug to lug, 14mm thick, and some of that is definitely in that heavily domed sapphire crystal, so do keep that in mind, and 19mm on the lug, so a little awkward, but there are options out there, so go check out this one on the website today. Now on to a brand and watch you very rarely see. That's this awesome Oxen Junior date 42mm titanium Pantone, a very, very cool watch. And again, not something you see often. If you're a fan of just design and that's what your focus is, and obviously it's got a great movement, but I mean design focus wise, this watch is all about that. So let's take a closer look. Next up, as I say, a watch brand and model you do not see often. This is the Oxen Junior date titanium in 42mm. Specifically, this is the reference Pantone 4525, and as you can see, you're featured, you're sort of instantly struck by this very nice matte black dial, which is almost bordering on grey, with these highlights of yellow and these holes throughout the dial with a yellow dot, which is the date. Very nicely done. And I just think, again, focus is completely on design here. Yes, it has a nice reliable movement, which is actually a modified automatic ETA 2824-2 hidden behind this plain case back, which has been recently serviced. But again, the focus here is on design. Very short, stubby little lugs. The case itself sort of sits on top of the lugs, which I find quite interesting as well, and again adds to the wearing experience, and again the simplistic design. It's one of those watches where no one is going to have a clue what you're wearing, and if they do, they're going to be someone you probably want to have a conversation with, because they're going to be interested in watches as well. This one's from May 2011, and it does come with its box and paperwork. Now, the term box and paperwork means it comes with what it was sold with, whereas Oxen Jr. are definitely on that minimalist packaging. You know, it's like a wooden, a cardboard piece of paper basically with all the details on. You'll see it on the website under the photo, so go check that out. But that's enough of the rambling. Let's show on wrist and tour dimensions. And here we go on my 7-inch wrist. Definitely an unusual wearing experience compared to most watches, and that short lug to lug really emphasizes that. So what you're looking at is 42mm by 42mm lug to lug, 9mm thick, which is incredibly thin, and 22mm on the lug, so quite wide. But again, it just adds to the overall wearing experience of this piece, which I think is exactly what it's all about. So go check out this one on the website today. Next up is this amazing Grand Seiko Quartz 37mm, part of the historical or heritage range, I should say, and I'm a really big fan of this. If you're not too fussed about quartz, which I don't think you should be, but I get some people are, this is a great option to get into Grand Seiko at way under £2,000. And getting yourself, you know, something really, really great. So let's take a closer look at this one. Now on to a simple and elegant Grand Seiko heritage model in the quartz range. What you're looking at is the SBGX 261, and this one's from November 2022. With its box and paperwork, and being 37mm, it wears beautifully on the wrist, and again very reminiscent of the vintage and simple but classic Grand Seiko dress watches. Paired on a bracelet, which is quite nice. Obviously you can swap that out for a strap if you so wish, and inside is the Grand Seiko Quartz 9F62. Now for those of you that know your watches, you know Grand Seiko Quartz isn't just a cheap simple quartz. They use very high grade quartz. They're made in-house, their second-hand hits the markers every time, their batteries last a very long time, and overall just everything about them is fantastic. It's brought to another level. So do not think of Quartz Grand Seikos, especially with the 9F movements, as just another quartz watch, because they really are not. They're done to the Grand Seiko standard you'd expect. So yeah, very simple, not an awful lot more to say. The bracelet is very nice, all brush finish. You have a polished bezel, polished sides, which again just really draw your eyes towards the simplicity of the dial, with the date and the Zaratsu finishing on the hands and indices. There's not much more to say about it other than it's perfect. You know, if you're looking for this kind of watch, you can't really get much better than this. So let's show on wrist and tour dimensions. And here we go, comfortably on my 7-inch wrist. That just looks perfect. I think anyway, I think this kind of size is the perfect size on my wrist. It looks that way to me anyway. So what you're looking at is 37mm right there by 44mm lug to lug, only 9.5mm thick and 19mm on the lugs, with drilled lug holes to make strap changing nice and easy. So yes, a little awkward on the lug length, but there are plenty of options out there, and I believe this one does come with a Grand Seiko strap, so check the box shot and the details on the website for all the specifics, but go check it out there today. Now on to some vintage, and a piece that I was intending to keep in the personal collection, but as always I can't keep them all. As much as I try, you know, things have to come to the website, so this is one of them, so snap it up before I change my mind. But this is a 1997 Zenith manually wound tank, as I've called it, although the case is so unique, it's unlike anything else really. So let's take a closer look. Easily a favorite for me, and one I'm going to be very sad to see go. This is a gorgeous Zenith manually wound tank, as I've called it, because again it's that rectangular case, and that's what most people associate with the rectangular case. But this is no ordinary rectangular case. As you can probably already see by the polished bezel, which is chamfered in so many different places. And as we take a closer look towards the lugs, look at the curves of this case. It's truly unlike anything I have seen. Really, really simply finished, but done in a very elegant way with all those corners and edges and curves. Zenith sign crown right there, and as we flip it over, you'll see the case back still has remnants of its original purple sticker that it would have come with, and this watch is from 1977, so that sticker is still partly there. Now, of course, you can take it off by rubbing it repeatedly with a cloth. It will come off, but again, I'm leaving that on there just to show that this watch has never been polished and it is in fantastic condition. Now, something to keep in mind there is where there is scratches, and this is an acrylic plastic crystal, and there are some marks on there that unfortunately just won't come out, but again, it's really not that bad at all. And to get a watch from 1977 in this kind of condition alone is already quite rare. As you can see, that blue vertically grained dial is gorgeous. In some lights it looks black, in other lights it becomes this really light baby blue, and it just is so dynamic. And it's paired on this very nice bluey green leather strap, which matches it very nicely, especially when you get that perfect shade, as you can see right there. Just look at that. This watch is incredible. Honestly, I'm going to regret selling this. So this is the reference 01.064.171. Inside is a manually wound Zenith caliber 2320, and as I say, circa 1977. So let's show this beauty on wrist and talk dimensions. And there we go, on my 7-inch wrist. This is by no means a small watch, and actually wears much more in line with modern proportions than watches from the 1970s. So if you're looking for a vintage style and a very 70s design, but in today's modern proportions, I don't think you can get much better than this. So what you're looking at is 30mm by 44.5mm lug to lug, only 6.5mm thick. Yes, that's incredibly thin, and 16mm on the lug, so endless options for swapping this one out. Although this pairing, I personally feel works really well, so go check it out on the website today. Next up is an Amiga Automatic Classic, as we call it, from 1961. A very simple, very beautiful, very elegant watch, and again, priced incredibly well. So let's take a closer look at this one. Next up is a simple and classic Amiga Automatic from circa 1961. This is the reference 14748 SC-61, and inside is the automatic Amiga caliber 552. We'll get onto the sizes in a little bit, but it's 33mm, and again, you've got that simple classic design. This sort of predates, or is, so as I was saying, this is in line with the C-Master models of the same era, apart from it doesn't say C-Master on the dial. Very simple, with just Amiga and automatic and the applied Amiga logo and indices. As you can see, this dial has patinaed and it's aged to this sort of like creamy eggshell color, which is quite unique and contrasts nicely against the steel case. Amiga crown there at 3 o'clock, as you'd expect, and as we flip it over, you're presented with a plain case back, which, as you can see, is tarnished and pitted. The reason for this is this watch was pretty much worn its entire life on a NATO strap, and this is something to keep in mind, guys. If you are wearing NATO straps, they are fantastic, but be warned that constant rubbing against steel, even stainless steel, can leave lasting impacts, especially over the course of 30, 40 odd years. So that's why the case back looks like that. Again, it's not the end of the world, it's perfectly fine, and there's no cracks or holes, and that's the main thing, but overall pretty good. So yeah, there we go. Let's show it on wrist and talk dimensions. And here we go on my 7-inch wrist, as you can see, nicely proportioned at 33mm by 41mm lug to lug, only 9mm thick and 18mm on the lugs. We've got it paired on this brown like strap that's, I believe, made of apple. I could be wrong on that, but I believe the strap is made of apple, but it gives this really nice vintage brown leather strap kind of style, and I think it works perfectly with the design. So go check this one out on the website today. And last but by no means least is a very interesting watch, and a watch that I think a lot of you are going to be surprised by. This is a gorgeous gold-plated Movado that features a manually wound Zenith movement. So this is going to be great for him or for her. It just looks fantastic. So let's take a closer look. Next up, we have something incredibly unique and different, and something I have not seen before and likely will not see again, to be honest. This is a very beautiful Movado dress watch from the 80s with this black dial with nothing but Movado and Swiss made and gold hands. Now the dial that was originally all black is speckled, as you can see. It's got this almost like stardust pattern that's developed, which I find quite attractive. The crystal has slightly aged over time, and you have got some markings around the outside, Sorry about that, it's my fingerprint, let's get rid of that. So you have got this slight marking around the outside, as you can see, which unfortunately can't be removed, but again, it's not very noticeable once on wrist. You have this nice gold-plated case with this interesting lug design, very reminiscent of certain Cartiers, like the Ronde and a couple of others. We've got it paired on a new black strap, because the old strap was very sad and sorry. Nice gold tone crown with a cabochon and a stainless steel snap-on case back. Now where it gets quite interesting is this is a Movado, but it features a manually wound Zenith caliber 2320 inside. And Movado and Zenith at this period were doing a lot of collaborating, using each other's parts and components and working very closely together. So this is kind of like a piece of history of that, because there's no reference to Zenith anywhere on it other than the fact there's a Zenith movement, which I find quite interesting. So, as I said in the intro, this is definitely a watch for him or for her. To be honest, a guy could totally wear this. It wears well on the wrist and it looks really interesting, but let's show it on wrist and talk dimensions. And there we go, on my 7-inch wrist. I think you can totally get away with it. So what you're looking at here is 31mm by 38.5mm lug to lug, 6.5mm thick, so incredibly thin, and 18mm at the lugs. To change these straps, you do need to have a strap cut or one made, and then have the bars taken out and put back in. So it's not an easy job, so I'd recommend just keeping it on the black strap. It suits it best anyway. But if you did want another strap done, let me know and give me a bit of time to get it sorted for you. But I'd recommend taking it on the black strap and enjoying it on that. So go check it out on the website today. So there you have it, guys and girls. This week's drop, 10 incredible watches. And as I said, I think the previous drop, so not last week, the week before, I'm trying to reduce the amount in each drop. Now, sometimes it's going to be very difficult. For example, I have next week's drop already complete and the following week's drop almost complete as well. So when I have that many watches coming in as I'm buying and consigning, sometimes I've got to put more watches in each drop just to get through them a bit quicker and bring them to you guys and girls via the website. So 10 is where I want to be. I want to be somewhere between 8 and 10 ideally, but again, I think I might have to increase it to 12 again soon. So let me know down in the comments, what do you think is a good number, you know, to have in each drop? There was a point where we only did 5 or 6. Then there was a point where we tried 15 in a week. That felt like too much personally. Let me know down in the comments what you think is the best number each week for watches going to the website. And do remember, everything is shared on Instagram on our broadcast list early, so you can get early access to everything that's coming soon. For more info on that, head over to our Instagram. There are highlight reels showing the coming soon, but also the broadcast list and how to access it. So there we go. We'll see you all again next week. Take care.